Well, hello there, everyone. Here I am. Much quicker than last time, eh? And my allergies aren't as bad this time either, so I won't sound strange. I don't know if you thought I sounded strange in the last reading, but I thought I did. Okay, so, a couple announcements. First off, I would like to do something for Halloween. You know, a special sort of reading. Something, maybe grimdark. I suppose it doesn't have to be grimdark, but something a little eerie, scary, what have you. Something Halloweeny. So, before anyone shouts cupcakes, or Rainbow Factory, or even Sweet Apple Massacre, I want you to know that I'd prefer something newer, fresher, something that hasn't been read before. You know, something that doesn't have a reading. So, if you all would, right now, go ahead, leave a comment, tell me what grim dark story should be read. I suppose I'll say the same thing in the next video as well, and then in the video after that maybe hold a poll of some sort. Maybe make a poll on DeviantArt since I can actually do that there. Then you all could go on there and vote and see the results and whatnot. Is this a subtle way to make you look at my DeviantArt? I'll never tell. If you know what that is from, congratulations! You have won one free internet. Alright, that's it for that announcement. Other announcement? I'm so sorry to say, everyone, but this will be the last reading for It's a Dangerous Business Going Out Your Door. 'Cause, it's just not getting that many views. Now, you could argue that hardly any of my videos get that many views. However, this series is getting the least amount. Now, if you don't want it to end, I guess the only thing I can say is try to get this video more views. I don't know. Wow. 2 minutes in and I haven't started the reading. I suppose I should go ahead and get on with it. So, Chapter 6 of It's a Dangerous Business Going Out Your Door. Applejack woke first, just as the pale light of dawn began to peek through the trees. She was always used to rising at sunup, and did so even without her trusty alarm clock. Yawning, the orange earth pony tossed off her blanket, rose to her hooves, and gave herself an enlivening shake. She reached down and took up her brown cowboy's hat in her mouth, and with a toss of her head, flipped the hat up into her head behind her ears. Pappy, she thought, feeling the familiar lightness of the hat on her head. What would you think of your little AJ now, all grown up and on an adventure? She stalked gently over to Rainbow Dash and nudged her behind her ears. Wake up, Rainbow, she said. It's time for breakfast and then to get a move on. Dash mumbled and turned over in her sleep. She was still wrapped around in the blanket. Rainbow Dash, wake up, Applejack said, louder this time. There was still no response. Rainbow, she yelled. What? The Pegasus gurgled as she finally regained consciousness. She sat up with the blanket still wrapped around her, making her look a little like a worm. She tried moving, but, again, the blanket was still wrapped around her. This caused her to panic. I'm trapped! Huh? Yes, your majesty, Rarity mumbled, stirring from a dream. She raised her sleeping mask off her eyes with a hoof. She frowned. Oh, drat, it's morning, isn't it? And I was having such a lovely dream. Oh, Celestia, I can't move my wings! I'm in a horrible... Rainbow, would you cut it out? Applejack cried. Dash finally realized she was not ensnared by some horrible beast. The Pegasus yawned. Morning, every pony, she said, wriggling out of the blanket. She stretched her wings back and then stretched her body forward, lowering herself until her chest nearly touched the ground. Her back cracked a few times. She cracked her head from side to side as well. Who's up for breakfast? We gotta make it quick, Applejack said, beginning to roll up her blanket. At least it stopped raining. Y'all help me break camp, and then we go nab some grass. Ew, the grass is gonna be soggy, Rarity whined. Can't we just have some more apples? I didn't pack 2 saddlebags full of apples, the orange earth pony said. I only got so many with me, and we used a fair number of them yesterday. We gotta conserve them for the times we can't get nothing else, like tonight, when we're in the mountains. You know, Rares, Dash said, hovering just off the ground. My offer to get you some leaves still stands. Rarity kicked off her blanket in annoyance and sighed. Well, fine. It can't be any worse than soggy, smushy grass. Pluck me off a branch or two, will you, Rainbow? Applejack said, folding her blanket tightly. She began to stuff into the saddlebag. I never tried leaves before. All right, one treetop breakfast coming up. The blue Pegasus shot out of the tent in a rainbow blur. Rarity used her magic to compress her pillow, shoving it back into one of her saddlebags. That pony had best not be pulling our legs. If I have to gargle a pulpy green mess for breakfast, I'd rather just go hungry. She's awful enthusiastic about them leaves, Applejack replied, beginning to pull up the blanket laid over the ground. I reckon she thinks you're pretty tasty. Yes, dear Applejack, but Rainbow Dash is not always the best judge of others' tastes, the white unicorn responded. Do you remember the time she tried to convince us to go cliff diving? Applejack chuckled at the memory. Shucks, I thought it was kind of fun. You just chickened out 'cause you were afraid of heights. One plummet from the sky to my impending doom per lifetime is enough. Thank you very much. Dash abruptly soared back into the tent, with 2 tree branches full of green leaves tucked under each front leg, and a third carried in her mouth. Ladies, she said, spitting out the mouth-bound branch, breakfast is served. She dropped the 2 branches under her legs, gripped the third between her front hooves, and began to rip leaves off with her mouth, chewing noisily and making satisfied sounds. Applejack pinned one branch in place with her hooves, and then bent down and nibbled off a leaf. She chewed it thoughtfully, considering the taste as it hit her tongue. Tart, she said with her mouth full. She swallowed. A little like Granny Smith apple. Rarity was busy nipping a leaf apart into small chunks. It's not quite as bad as I thought it would be. That's the spirit, Dash cried, shoving her mouth into the remaining branch and taking an enormous bite of leaves. The bright green sprouts of spring looked like a beard around her snout as she slowly chewed them down. They're all so fresh, especially in the spring, and no pony's been walking all over them. Well, the white unicorn admitted, there is that. At Applejack's insistence, they ate quickly, each of them finishing their branches in swift succession, notwithstanding Rarity's usual daintiness. What followed was last night in reverse. Rarity used her magic to remove the rock weights around the tarp. Rainbow Dash carried it back over to the branch. Then all 3 ponies worked together to fold a large oilcloth into a shape compact enough to fit into Applejack's saddlebag. By the time the sky was orange with the risen sun, they were packed up and they had set out from amidst the trees, quickly reaching the same brisk pace they had kept for much of the previous day. Soon the gentle slope they had begun to encounter yesterday grew markedly steeper, and the broad-branched oaks and elms and ashes gave way to prickly pines. The path began to grow rocky, and Rarity almost lost her footing on one particularly large rock in their path. Can't we slow down a bit? She cried. We don't want to fall off the mountain. When we get in danger of that, yeah, we'll slow down, Rainbow Dash cried back, but not before. You're not even running, the unicorn chastised the Pegasus. The Dragon Ridge Mountains climbed higher and higher, the path growing steeper and steeper as the morning wore on. By the time noon arrived, they were almost above the tree line, and slight chill had begun to pervade the air. Rarity shivered. Oh, it's getting cold, she said. It started to get mighty chilly. Applejack concurred. She and Rarity slowed to a trot. You girls are such wimps, Dash said as she shot past them, banking hard. She spun around and put her hooves on her hips. It's not cold at all. You wouldn't know, would you? Rarity remarked, sliding her saddlebags off her flanks. Pegasi don't get cold, remember? Well, we can tell when it's cold, even if we don't feel it, the Pegasus said. And it's not that cold, not really. Maybe not, but it's going to get colder the higher up we go, Applejack said. I'd rather stop now and bundle up than to do it when the snow's coming down on us. Besides, it's time for lunch. Dash fluttered to the ground. Well, if it's lunchtime... Rarity said, using her magic to lift 2 sweaters out of her saddlebags. From the right bag she produced a hot pink cashmere sweater, while from the left she lifted a sweater of alpaca wool, the color of oatmeal. The alpaca sweater was slightly heavier. Applejack, darling, you should wear this one, she said, levitating the alpaca sweater toward her earth pony comrade. It's heavy enough to give you some warmth under that vest you've brought. Applejack tugged the black vest of quilted wool out of her saddlebag. "This baby's seen me through plenty of winters all by itself," she said. "Darling, there's gonna be snow." "I've been out in blizzard with nothing but this here vest on and my hat." "Applejack, please," Rarity said, putting on a pouty expression. "I feel simply awful if I'm warm and you're shivering away up front. I know how much you love playing the martyr." "The what?" Applejack asked. "But be practical this time, please." The last word was accompanied by a flutter of the unicorn's long eyelashes. She leaned forward, her beautiful blue eyes wavering with intensity. Applejack rolled her green eyes at Rarity's display, but even she wasn't completely immune to the unicorn's charms. Finally, the orange earth pony sighed. "Oh, all right," she relented. She reached up with her hooves and grabbed the floating sweater. "But don't be mad if I break a sweat in this heavy thing," she added, feeling the thickness of the material. "Oh, not to worry, darling," Rarity said, using her magic to unfold the pink cashmere sweater. "I can always wash it when we get back to Ponyville." "Okay, you've played dress-up long enough," Rainbow Dash said, pounding her hooves on the rocky edge. "Can we get back to that lunch you were mentioning?" Applejack pulled the neck of the sweater over her head. "Sure thing, just give me a second to get this sucker on." She wriggled her front legs through the leg holes, noting that the sweater was quite soft on the inside despite its rugged outer weave. The chill in the air around her was greatly dispelled. Flipping her hat back onto her head, the earth pony finally tugged her long blonde mane out of the neck so that it was free. "We may have to hold off on dinner this evening if we want to conserve our apple supply." "I actually brought some granola bars," Rarity mentioned, pushing her pink sweater down more securely against her flanks. She gently extricated her wavy violet mane from the sweater's neck. "They're not much, but they'll give us something to put in our stomachs. I'd rather not go to bed hungry if I can help it." "Twilight's book said there was plenty of grass in Gildendale," Applejack said. "Once we're over the mountains, we should be able to eat off the land. If we're lucky, there will even be fruit or some such produce that we can store on our return trip." Rainbow Dash blinked her rose-colored eyes and grimaced. "Oh, Pony Feathers, I forgot we'd have to make a round trip. Oh, this is gonna take forever." Rarity's expression indicated that she had forgotten this as well. "Well," she said, trying to sound happy, "perhaps we'll meet a friendly eagle or hippogriff that will give us a lift back home." "Too bad some pony doesn't know how to teleport," Dash growled, glancing at Rarity. Rarity's eyes filled with pain. She flinched away like she'd been struck. "Rainbow!" Applejack snapped. The sky-blue Pegasus quickly realized her mistake. "Oh my gosh, Rarity, I'm so sorry," she gasped, scooting over to her friend. I forgot." "No," Rarity said, shifting away from her. "It's quite all right, darling." Her body language made it plain that this was a lie. "I suppose it would be more convenient if I knew how to teleport. Perhaps I really should learn someday." "Now don't you get your tail in a twist, Rarity," said Applejack, plucking some apples from her saddlebags. "You don't need to learn how to teleport if you don't want to. You're plenty useful for this trip without knowing how. Ain't she, Rainbow?" The earth pony finished with a glare at Dash. "Oh, well, yeah, of course," Dash said. "I mean, you still have your other magic, and that's something AJ and I can't do." Smiling fiercely, she threw a front leg around the white unicorn. "I don't think there's a better possible group that could have gone on this trip. We've got Applejack, a tough and dependable earth pony. We've got you, a magical and creative unicorn. And we've got me." She thumped her chest with her other hoof. "The fastest and fiercest Pegasus in all of Equestria." Rarity chuckled, leaning into Rainbow Dash. "I suppose you're right, darling. I just hope I can be as useful as you say. But you and Applejack are the first ponies I would choose to go on an adventure with." "I reckon we'll all be useful to each other before this trip is done," Applejack said. "Now, let's eat." They lunched on 2 apples each and chatted happily, enjoying each other's company and all feeling much better about their prospects for the rest of the trip. When they had finished, the 2 running ponies took off their saddlebags again, and the 3 of them continued their climb into the mountains. The sky was now light gray with cloud cover, and a cool wind had begun to blow. Higher and higher they climbed. They now had no choice but to slow down, as the path was becoming steep and jagged, filled with rocks. The wind howled around them, whipping through the crevices and cracks of the towering peaks every which way. "Whoa!" Applejack cried, stopping suddenly. "Oh, what's wrong, darling?" Rarity asked. Applejack said nothing. Sitting down, she took her hat off her head with her front hoofs. Turning it over, she tugged around the interior for a moment and pulled out a drawstring attached to the inside of the hat. Flipping the hat back on her head, she used both hooves to tighten the drawstring as it came under her neck, until it was pulled tight and the Calico's hat was snugly secured. Rainbow Dash put her hooves on her cheeks and dragged them down her face slowly. "Can we go now?" she hissed. "Yup," Applejack said. "We can go." And they began to climb again, rounding one sharp bend where the wind blew fiercely. The Earth Pony was quite happy that her hat was tied in place. About an hour further up the mountains, it started to snow. Small, scattered flakes at first, then gradually heavier, until thick flurries were swirling on the wind around them. Again, Applejack motioned for them to halt. "I reckon it's time to bundle up a bit more," she said, sliding her saddlebags off. Reaching into her left bag, she pulled out her black quilted vest. "I do believe you're right," Rarity concurred. The white unicorn was shivering. Sliding off her own saddlebags, she used her magic to open the right bag and pulled out her dark gray coat. It was lined with white lamb's wool and was exceptionally warm. "Rainbow, you sure you're not cold?" Applejack called to the Pegasus, hovering just off the edge of the path. "I'm fine," Dash said back, a distinct note of annoyance in her voice. "I told you before, Pegasus ponies don't get cold." "Must be nice," Applejack remarked, snapping together lots of the snaps on her vest. She pulled out an orange scarf from her right bag and wrapped it snugly around her neck. "Oh, heavens, no," Rarity said, using magic to zip up her coat. "Think of all the wonderful accessorizing and layering that we would miss out on." This earned her an eye roll from the orange Earth Pony. Both ponies repositioned their saddlebags, and with an impatient Rainbow Dash flying alongside them, they continued their push through the increasingly driving snow. By the time evening arrived, the path was winding steeply through mountain peaks that rose sheer all around them. They were trudging through a full-blown blizzard, the snow so dense in the air that they could barely see the way ahead of them. Dash had actually come down from the sky. The wind was blowing so fast. She dragged her legs through the hoof-thick snow in between Applejack and Rarity, her rainbow-striped mane and tail whipping widely in the wind. They were scrambling up a particularly steep rise, trying to keep their footing in the snow and tumbling rocks. Stretching out one step, Applejack was surprised to put her hoof on ground level. "It levels out up here," she called back to the others. She put the other foot up onto the ledge and hauled herself up. Rolling into her side, she finally reached the top. Turning back around, she offered her front hooves to Rainbow Dash. "I wish I had some rope now, no lie," she thought. Still, Applejack was a strong pony, and Dash was light as all Pegasus tended to be, so she easily pulled her friend up into the level space. She did the same for Rarity, though the unicorn's heavy saddlebags meant she needed to expend more effort. When she was on level ground again, Rarity surveyed her surroundings. They seemed to be very high in the mountains indeed. Shorter mountain peaks spread away beneath them, and shallow valleys between the peaks were filled with snowdrifts. "Could we be at the highest point in the path?" Rarity called to her friends. "It's sure possible," Applejack remarked. She joined Rarity in looking out below them. The snow rose a good ways up their legs. "Girls," Rainbow Dash's voice cut through the wind, "look at this!" The two ponies turned around, and their eyes widened. There was a large round opening set into the mountainside far back from the ledge. It was no mere cave, either. The opening was a neat, smooth circle, rimmed by an outline of stone which two symbols were carved. "Any pony know what those say?" Dash asked, pointing to the strange glyphs. "I sure ain't never seen nothing like that before," Applejack remarked. "Twilight's a scholar, not me," Rarity said. "It's certainly not modern equestrian." The sky-blue Pegasus began to creep forward, breathing out fog into the frigid mountain air. "Rainbow!" Applejack cried. "You don't know what's in there." "I just want to look," Dash said over her shoulder. "Maybe we can stay here for the night." Rarity exchanged a glance with Applejack. "I suppose it couldn't hurt to take a peek, right?" She trudged through the snow towards Dash. As Rainbow Dash drew close to the mouth of a cave, she began to hear something. It was very faint, almost imperceptible at first. A gentle lilt, coming from deep within the blackness. With each step she took, she could hear more clearly. The language was not one she could understand, but she knew instinctively that it was the spoken form of the glyphs written around the cave's mouth. It crooned at her like a lullaby, but jauntier and more energetic. It beckoned her to wonderment. The Pegasus was deeply charmed. "That music," she muttered. She began to walk slowly forward. Music, Rarity said, several paces behind her. The unicorn paused and pricked up her ears and found she could hear it too. It was a haunting, mournful tune, sung by the most beautiful voice Rarity had ever heard, even more beautiful than Fluttershy's. It compelled her to wrap herself in its elegance. Oh my, she whispered, beginning to walk forward. Applejack, behind both of them, jerked back her head. What are y'all doing? Can't you hear it? Dash said absent-mindedly. The music, Rarity said in a trance. Both ponies' eyes had grown wide and glazed. Applejack stomped her hoof. She leaned her head forward and craned her ears. Nope, she said after a few seconds. I don't hear no music. I think y'all are just pulling my leg, to be honest. So cut it out and let's get going. I don't like the looks of this here cave. Rainbow Dash and Rarity did not seem to be paying attention to her. They both continued their slow, deliberate walk deeper into the cave. Applejack was highly annoyed. Would y'all mind coming back here and maybe getting on with me? Are y'all even listening? The orange earth pony galloped up behind the unicorn and the Pegasus and shouted at them, Hey, we gotta get going! She stomped her hoof impatiently on the ground. Suddenly, the orange earth pony did hear something terrifying. She supposed it could be called singing, but the loud, rumbling roar was so dense and throaty that she could barely tell words were being spoken. It echoed from deep within the cave, harsh and threatening. Rarity, Rainbow, don't go in there, she called, galloping forward and grabbing both ponies' tails in her mouth. She planted her feet and gave them a tug, trying to drag them backwards. Both ponies glared back at her, their empty eyes flickering with expressions of malice. Rainbow Dash flapped into the air and jerked away, while Rarity used her magic to pry Applejack's mouth open. Both ponies resumed their forward progress, their pace picking up to a trot. Panicking, Applejack did what she always did in desperate situations. Thought about how she would handle things if she were on the farm. Galloping past her two friends, she skidded to a stop next to a wall of the cave, reared up her front legs, and bucked with all of her might. Her back hoof slammed into the rock, sending a long, forking crack racing up the wall and across the ceiling. Dust and crags immediately began to tumble down, stalactites crackling off and falling like stone daggers to the floor below. A small rock hit Rarity on the head, snapping her back into her senses. What? Oh my! She cried, looking up at the collapsing ceiling. Dash was still entranced by the singing, which she could hear even over the growing din. Come on! Applejack called to her. She cut across in front of Dash and ducked down, and then rose up, putting the sky-blue Pegasus across her back. Galloping with all her might, Rarity close behind her, Applejack dodged and wove around falling rock as she pressed desperately towards the entrance of the cave. Finally, gasping for breath, the three of them emerged into the driving snow of the mountains, and not a moment too soon, for the cave completely fell apart in their wake, ceiling and walls alike tumbling down to a pile of rubble that completely filled the mouth of the cave and spilled out of it into a rocky ledge. Huh? Rainbow Dash finally murmured, her pupils shrinking back to their normal size. What happened? And all I recall is hearing some beautiful singing, Rarity said. Applejack, darling, did you? A long, roaring howl rose up from within the crumbled cave. It came from deep in the chest of something unseen and strange, full of rage and annoyance, potent enough to cut through dozens of feet of piled rock, and who knew how many more empty space deep within the cave. The roar gave way to snarling and gnashing, and the three ponies swore that they could feel the ground beneath them thud with faint pounding. Geez, is that what was singing? Dash yelped, drawing back. It sure was, Applejack said. Y'all seem to hear it pretty like, but for me it was just as ugly then as it is now. Perhaps it was some sort of magic, Rarity speculated. A bewitching song to lure travelers to their doom. Oh, I do wish Twilight were here. She knows this business far better than I do. So why didn't you get bewitched, AJ? Dash asked. She smiled. Maybe you're just too stubborn. Not a clue, the orange earth pony said. And I don't see the point in pondering any further. Right now I'd much rather get away from this place in a hurry. The howling was picking up again. Rarity shuddered. I think you're right, Applejack, she said. She gave Applejack a big smile. And thank you for saving me, us. Rainbow Dash and I would be goners if you hadn't been there. Oh yeah, Dash said. Thanks a ton, Applejack. She flapped her wings and was airborne again. The blizzard had died down some at their present altitude, and the winds were not as fierce. Now, let's get going. They moved on as quickly as their legs would carry them. As Rarity had guessed, they did appear to have reached the high point in the trail, at least for the time being. And now it was all downhill. The trail soon led them to a winding, narrow valley, almost a crevice between the steep cliffs jutting up on either side. As they descended from the summit of the path, the blizzard began to pick up again, once more forcing Rainbow Dash to the ground. As the Pegasus looked around, she noticed that the snow was driving incredibly thick. It cut across and around them in sheets of pure white, billowing Applejack's scarf and Rarity's coat. Dash still wasn't cold, but the wind was now cutting at her skin like a knife. She had to blink furiously to keep the snow out of her eyes. It was also growing darker, and not just from the snow. Night was coming on fast. The path seemed to suddenly open up, the crevice giving way to an open mountain valley. Now there was snow everywhere. It had room to swirl and gather, and was no less fierce from a wider space in which it moved. Dash scanned her surroundings. Up, down, side to side. Everything had become a field of flickering white, with no visibility beyond a few feet. She was trapped. She was closed up in a box of snow. There was no way out. "Girls," she cried, shouting to be heard above the roar of the wind. "Do y'all say something?" Applejack called over her shoulder, her hat's brim curving the force of the wind. Dash began to breathe faster, slowing her pace until she finally stopped walking entirely. "I'm trapped," she thought, again and again looking around her. "I can't see the sky," she finally yelled to Applejack. "Oof," Rarity cried as she bumped into the sky-blue Pegasus's rump. "What's wrong, Rainbow Dash?" she yelled. "I can't see the sky," Dash yelled over her shoulder. She began to tremble, fidgeting furiously, lifting each leg one after the other, fluttering her wings fruitlessly in the gale-force winds. "Speak up!" Applejack yelled over the winds, turning around to face her. "I can't see the sky!" Rainbow Dash yelled at the top of her lungs. "Sky, sky, sky, sky!" The last scream finally cut through the interference of the wind and echoed deeply around the surrounding mountainsides. Dash was breathing hard, shivering now. Applejack looked her up and down. "Well, of course you can't see the sky. You can't even see the mountainside, even though it's right there." A rumble began to fill her ears. Faint initially, it quickly grew louder. The world around Applejack began to shudder, and she looked frantically around, searching for the source of the disturbance. Rarity spun around, likewise seeking the noise's source. Rainbow Dash was still frozen in place. It was only belatedly that Applejack realized the rumbling noise was coming from overhead. She looked up, just in time to see a wall of white block out of faint light still remaining around her. "Oh, horse apple." Boom! I really should try to get some sound effects or something. I'm just horrible at onomatopoeia. White, cold, cold white, everywhere and anywhere, all around them, rolling and thundering and piling. The avalanche quickly buried them, snow piling on thicker and thicker. The rumbling continued for a few minutes, thundering in the darkness around and above them as more snow fell down. A few seconds later, there was silence. Brah! That is a weird noise, but that's my guess on how to say it. Applejack sputtered, poking her head up from the snow and staring around at the blackness. The snow was packed so tightly around her that no light flitted in from above. However, she seemed to have raised her head up in a hollow in the snow. Reaching down through the freezing white powder to her saddlebags, she flipped one open and dug through it until she found her flashlight. She pulled it out and used her tongue to flick it on, illuminating the miniature blue-white cave of snow only about a head taller than her hat. There was shifting in the snow next to her, and Rarity's head popped up. A few feet away, Rainbow Dash emerged as well. Rarity blinked twice. I don't really want to scream. I don't know how to scream. Ah! That was a Fluttershy scream. Ah! I don't know. Dash shrieked, spasming and twisting through the snow around her. We're trapped! We're trapped! Oh, Celestia, I can't see. I can't move. We're doomed, Rarity wailed. We're doomed and we're gonna die frozen in this horrid abyss. Hey, y'all, Applejack said. I think we should just calm down. I can't see. I'm in the dark and the sky is gone. We're going to be stuck here and we're going to starve. I think if we... I can't move my wings. I'm stuck and my wings are gone. Who won't even want us? And when some poor traveler finds our bodies, my mate will be bleached white. And they'll look at my sweat and think, this pony didn't know how to color coordinate at all. And then I... Cut it out. All of y'all calm down right now, Applejack barked, using the sharp voice he used with cattle and pigs. It shut Rarity up, and at least made Dash more quiet. Applejack glared at the white unicorn. We ain't dead yet. I'd much appreciate if you stopped panicking and started thinking rational. Rarity took several deep breaths, blushing fiercely. I am sorry, darling. I don't know what came over me. Just so you keep your head on your shoulders, the last thing we need is to overreact to a manageable problem, Applejack said. She turned toward Dash. As for you, Rainbow Dash, I expect... Rainbow? Rainbow Dash had stopped screaming, but appeared no calmer. Her pupils had shrunk to dots, and she had curled up in the snow, where she lay shivering, unblinking. I can't see. I can't move. I can't see. I can't move. I can't see. I can't move. She whispered again and again, occasionally darting glances at our white surroundings. Rainbow? Applejack said, softer, more gently. She scooted closer to the Pegasus. Rainbow, are you all right? I can't see, I can't move, I can't see, I can't move, I can't see, I can't move, can't... Oh man, I can't read that, it's all together. I can't move, can't see, can't move, can't see, can't see, can't move, can't move, can't move, can't see, I don't care. Applejack shuffled through the snow until she was right next to the trembling Rainbow Dash. She sat with her legs beneath her and leaned against Dash's sky-blue body, pushing her head gently against Dash's head. It's okay, she whispered gently. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. The Earth Pony could feel her friend's jagged breathing, so she kept her own breathing steady and even, soothing her, like what she did with Apple Bloom when she had a nightmare. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Rarity slowly scooted over to join them, leaning against Rainbow Dash on her other side. She spoke no words, but began to hum a gentle tune, the music of a lullaby she often sang the Sweetie Belle. She nuzzled Dash softly as she hummed, planting a brief kiss behind her ear. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay, Applejack continued to whisper. Slowly, inch by inch, Dash's breathing returned to normal. Her eyes grew back to their healthy size, and her shivering slowly abated. Her rose-colored eyes slid closed, and she breathed out a long, shaking sigh. Thank you, she whispered. She didn't want her friends to see her cry, but she had a very hard time keeping the tears out of her eyes. She sniffled and scooted away from Rarity and Applejack, wiping her eyes with a hoof. Sorry about that. Applejack smiled warmly at her. It's no big thing, Sugar Cube. You never told me you were claustrophobic. I'm not, the Pegasus pony said. She glanced down into the snow. I just like being able to see the sky. When I can't, I get nervous. Applejack scooted back over to where her flashlight lay in the snow. She picked it up and planted it on its base in the snow in the middle of the clear space, lighting up the snow cave around them. She looked up at the ceiling, close over their heads. You know, she said, I reckon we should stay here tonight. Under the snow? Dash asked incredulously. Snow's a good insulator, Applejack said. We never mind it falling on the ground during winter time at the farm. It keeps heat in from the ground. And down here we're out of the wind. We can stay the night under here, and hopefully the blizzard will have blown over by morning. Rarity sighed. I suppose it's the best we can do, in lieu of finding another cave, and I'm not terribly inclined to trust caves right now, she said. It's a little cramped, you know, Dash said, stretching her wings out of the snow. Rarity, can you dig down a little bit with your magic? Applejack asked. I reckon there's a few feet of snow between us and the ground. Nodding, Rarity's horn shimmered, and the snow began to fly away from the middle of the small space. It pulled away from the bottom of the snow cave and revealed yet more snow, which in turn flew away, piling back against the circular opening created by Rarity's magic. About 4 feet down, black rock finally emerged, Applejack's flashlight clattering against it. The orange earth pony leapt down into the hollow, followed shortly by the sky-blue Pegasus and the white unicorn. Reaching into her saddlebags, Applejack pulled out one of her blankets and spread it across the rock. She then pulled out another blanket and spread it down on top of the first. Rarity, you brought a blanket, right? Bring it out here. Rarity took a moment to unzip her coat with magic, pulling it off and sliding her front legs out of the sleeves. She reached into her saddlebag and pulled out a velveted black blanket that shimmered slightly in the light of Applejack's flashlight. Applejack gave the blanket an annoyed look. Always have to be fancy with that one, she thought. Still, it would serve. She took it up in her mouth and laid it on top of her second blanket. Now we just bunch together and roll up. The three of us together with these blankets should make enough heat to keep warm. We can gather up in my coat, too, Rarity said, starting to shiver without the gray warm overcoat on her body. It's quite warm. Sure, Rainbow Dash remarked. She yawned. I'm actually pretty tired, now that you mention it. Let's go to bed. That's the most sensible thing you've said in hours, Applejack replied with a smile. They laid Rarity's coat out on top of her blanket on the far right side, and the three ponies snuggled close together in the lamb's wool lining. On a count of three, roll left, Applejack said. 1, 2, 3. They rolled left, and they moved left, wrapping themselves in 3 layers of blankets as they did. When they reached the end, they were cocooned, and the biting cold of the snowy world outside was a distant memory. Don't forget to leave enough opening to breathe, darling, Rarity remarked, fumbling against Applejack's flank. There's air coming in from here. Applejack said, nosing opening a small crack near her snout. She yawned. Whew! I'm getting more tired by the moment. Good night, Everpony, she murmured. Good night, Rarity said. Good night, girls, Rainbow Dash said. She was in between Rarity and Applejack, and the two ponies were surprised when she stretched out her wings over both of them. Thank you, again. With smiles on their faces, Rarity and Applejack scooted closer to Rainbow Dash. It is difficult to gauge one's tiredness after a long and difficult day until one comes to the end of it. Having endured much hardship and at least one brush with death, the three ponies now found that they were utterly exhausted, and so slipped quickly into dreamless slumber. And that's the last chapter of It's a Dangerous Business Going Out Your Door that I'm ever going to read. Unless enough of you prove that you love this story and want me to continue by somehow getting me more views. I don't know. Because I'm not stopping because I don't like this story. Because I do. I think it's actually pretty good. And I probably will continue reading it, to myself later. However, these videos, the dangerous business readings, they just don't get as many views as the others. And I just don't see much point in reading a story that not many people are watching. Or, I guess, listening, I should say. Now, how many views is enough? Well, let's see. The last dangerous business reading was 3 weeks ago, and it has 82 views. Which is pitiful. I mean, most of my videos are kind of like that. But still, pitiful. So let us say, if it gets 100 views within a week, then I suppose I will continue reading it. Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment about some sort of grim, dark story that I should read for Halloween. Do it now, if you have not already done it. And so, if you enjoyed this reading of It's a Dangerous Business Going Out Your Door, be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. And until the next reading, everyone, farewell.